Greetings, true believers. It is I, Matt Hall, and of course,
Jordan Hill.
And we are here to discuss
SOMA.
Yes, this has been, I say we, but it's really been me. I've been putting the word out. What are some good games for this series? And my prerequisites were relatively short, which is funny because I think for you and I, we've looked up a few relatively short games. We go, oh, I looked it up. Yeah, there's a full gameplay video, like 4 hours. And we're like, 10 hours?
Yeah, specifically MDK2.
I feel like SOMA as well. I've seen people beat in just a few hours. And it's like, I took a while with this game.
Yeah, I'd say even on my second playthrough on easy, it still took me like 6-7 hours, probably. Yeah. I'm not quick. I'm not fast. And I like exploring, you know what I mean? I like wandering around. I like checking every crevasse.
I do too.
So it's like I'm not a speedrunner by any means.
No. The other things I said I was looking for in a game was something narrative driven, but something that you can interpret and discuss and have a unique perspective on. Not necessarily like deep theory crafting for everything, but something where there's at least a message that you can kind of interpret as you will. Because I mean, I'm sure this is a game that I was looking up some of the discourse online, and some of it gets very heated, and I think it's very funny to get into a flame war over
a video game. I mean, they're big concepts, though. You know,
they are big concepts.
And I mean, even when I was like streaming it, there was people in the chat like popping in and being like we'll get into it later, but then being like, well, they're not saving anything, you know what I mean, and saying stuff like that, and I'm like, well, yeah, that's up to. It's open to interpretation, I guess.
It's open to the, I think, the main question here is one of identity and, what does it mean to be you?
Yes. Not necessarily even human, but what does it mean to be you?
Yeah. And then, beyond that, is that identity tied to an organic life form or not? It gets into a lot of deep topics. So this game was, like I said, suggested by a bunch of people.
Yeah, I mean, it's a perfect candidate, too.
Friend of the channel, Charlie, who's been on some of our discussion videos with Dean from Gaming University, was a big proponent of us playing SOMA.
Hell yeah.
A bunch of other people. And, hey, I think it's a good... I
had a lot of fun with it. I mean, I played through it twice in like 2 weeks, you know what I mean? I loved it. I had a really fun time with it.
I hated every minute of it, but we'll get into that. Also, I do want to say this game was released in 2015 for the PS4 and computers. And then 2 years later, it hit the Xbox One, I believe.
The X-Bone.
There's also the live action prequel, which is not entirely canon. It's a little bit back and forth on where it fits into the story due to some inconsistencies.
Yeah, and I didn't look into the history. Is it fan made and then they like said this is cool or no? Okay, it's not. Okay,
yeah,
so
and it was something that was supposed to come out sooner, but there was delays. There was also a film that's been in production limbo.
Oh, okay.
But I was looking through the
sounding like your cat.
Frictional Games' YouTube channel, and they have a bunch of great SOMA videos, like behind the scenes stuff, making of, other like promotional featurettes, and it's like if now I didn't find myself like enamored by this game like I am by the Remedy games in the same way.
Yeah.
But if you are someone who's going to get hyper focused on a game, this is a great game for you because yes, the mysteries, the questions you can ask, the concepts in it, but also just like there's a crazy wealth of information on how it came together and what the game is, including something that you explored. I didn't get a chance to, but
oh yeah, the super secret file that you can find in the. I just like browse local files, looked up super secret, found it. It was really fun because then you had to like obviously unzip it and stuff and extract the files from it.
So it's just like a RAR file.
It's just a RAR file, yeah.
And it's called Super Secret.
It's just called Super Secret.
It's in the game folder.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I unzip it, and then you need a password. And I just found some Reddit post where some guy goes on like a 3-page.
I read that.
Yeah,
and then other people in the comments were like, well, you could have gotten it a lot easier doing this. And he's like, oh, well,
Who cares? He got it either way.
Yeah.
But like, thankfully, there was a too long didn't read, and I just found the password, typed it in, and it's just a bunch of fun stuff. It's like there's like clips of like early builds of the game. It's all like little videos and stuff like that. There's like a few like just like early character model builds and stuff like that. There was one that was just stupid shit was the name of the folder that I sent to Matt, where it was just like just nude models of male characters. And in one of them it was like he was large and a small version was on his shoulder, and it just kept like zooming out.
Yeah. An endless chain.
An endless chain of hanging dong.
I think I was trying to reach for a cat hair if anyone's curious what that was.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, I could see it floating around too. He's just reaching for me.
I watched, there's like a 25-minute maybe compilation of scenes from an early build of the game that I watched, and it's a slightly different story. It's more as if you wake up in a nightmare in Simon's mind, and it's not necessarily the same thing as what it becomes. We'll get into all that, but yeah, like I said, this was Frictional Games, who did Penumbra, I think in 2006 or 7, and then did the Amnesia series. Now, I played through the first Amnesia game close to when it came out. I think I pirated it. Or I had a demo disc, possibly, but I really think I pirated it.
Matt just admitting to felonies on the... What's the statute of limitations on?
Yeah, well, I don't think pirating a game is a felony, but I was committing a felony around
the same time.
Yes, basically simultaneously. And I don't want to get into the details of that. That would be crossing the line for me. I'm going to look at my Steam library real quick and see, do I own Amnesia?
I'm sure you do at this point. I'm sure there was some sort of sale.
I don't know. Amnesia, The Dark Descent.
The Dark Decent.
Does not look like it's in my library. So.
Filthy thief.
Oh. I don't know. Did I pirate it? I just, in my mind, I remember downloading it from a website. Maybe it was a demo. I remember downloading it from what I thought was I swear, I thought it was like totally legit. No, my vague memory is like a developer website or a demo disc or something that I played the game through, but I could be totally wrong. It could have been, it could have also, somebody gave me a bunch of games that they got in a Humble Bundle.
Oh, okay, that could have been it, yeah.
And they just had like the DRM free files not attached to a Steam key, so that could have also been it. But either way, I remember going like, this is pretty good, but it's like, it's very similar in the sense that it is a first-person survival horror exploration narrative driven game with minimal to no combat.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say there's ever combat per se, but there's
SOMA,
enemy encounters.
Yeah. There's really only one moment where you could technically call what you use a weapon. You know what I mean? And honestly, I just felt real bad.
Right. You mean your harsh language toward Catherine?
Yes. Using my words as weapons.
Yeah. Have you played Penumbra or Amnesia? Nope. Are you familiar with those?
I'm familiar with Amnesia. I've never played it.
You probably watched like Markiplier stream it.
It was Game Grumps, but yeah, pretty much, yeah. I've never watched Markiplier, actually.
Are Game Grumps the ones that are like always like sucking each other's cocks in their fucking Let's Plays?
No. That's
that's Super Best Friends or whatever.
That's like whatever. Yeah, I've never watched them, but they are like affiliated with the Game Grumps, I guess. Super Mega.
Super Mega.
Yeah.
I think I'm pretty sure like the whole time they're just having sex with each other.
That's like the joke, and then they like hit each other in the face and stuff.
Yeah. Boys being boys.
Just guys being dudes, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Anyway, I don't like this style of game usually.
Yeah.
It really needs to be very well crafted for me to not just kind of get bored and frustrated with the game that has so little interaction. And this game had a lot of interactive objects, and I enjoyed digging through drawers and opening lockers and finding photos and stuff. Like that part was cool, and it all felt very relevant to the world building. But I've played so many other like these like survival horror games that are basically, I feel like they're a descendant of like Clock Tower or something, where it's like your only defense is to run and hide as you uncover what you need to do.
Yeah. My really only experience with games like that is like Outlast, which I played through the first one maybe twice, I think. Because I enjoyed it. And then I played like the PT demo was kind of in a similar vein. And the PT demo was really fun. But other than that, I've never really gotten into games like this, where even games where it's like the main component is stealth. Even if there is some combat, it's never really been my jam.
Yeah, but you thoroughly enjoyed this.
I had a lot of fun with it, yeah.
Yeah. I did too. I will get into some of my criticisms eventually. But no, I thought it was very, very well made. And also, I mean, they are kind of, you know, I think pioneers of that genre in 3D games, I think.
Yeah,
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure.
Amnesia's a huge name. Yeah. For sure.
And I don't like Penumbra as well. Like, I don't know if that's as popular, but I remember it making an impact when it came out. And it's like, I think it was like 2007. I struggle to think of another game similar to this. I mean, there's a couple From Software games, like early PS1 titles, that are sort of similar in terms of the first person exploration survival horror thing. I think like I can't remember what they're called. I want to say like Echo Knight was maybe one of them, but
you're much more well versed in this than I am.
Well, I struggle to think of much else just, you know, like this that came before them. Yeah, I can think of a lot of stuff afterward.
Yeah, but I can't think of anything before that.
So it makes sense that they would be so good at it. Especially like I think this was their fourth or fifth game. There's like 3 entries in the Penumbra series, and then I think they did 1 or 2 Amnesia games.
I think there's 2 Amnesias.
There's at least 3.
Oh, is there 3? Did they come out with one recently?
The Bunker.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Where you have a gun.
Oh. Ooh.
Give me Amnesia, but with guns. So I guess before we get too deep into like the story itself, let's talk about the controls and like, you know, gameplay. Feeling the game, the gameplay and everything. I found it to be super smooth and intuitive and just very immersive. Yeah,
I mean, it felt agreed. The controls were very generic, honestly. Like the feel of it was very generic. It felt like a lot of games from that era. Like it felt like BioShock. It felt like, you know what I mean? A lot of Bethesda titles from that time. It felt a little bit like Prey as far as like how it controlled and just the movement and the look of it too.
Do those games include the mechanic where you like grab a thing and then move your arm?
No, that was pretty cool.
Okay, I was trying to think of like I could think of other games that feature that. That took me a minute to get used to, but by the time I was out of the apartment in the intro,
I had to figure it out.
I explored the apartment quite a bit.
Yeah, and something cool, not to get too into it, but when my 2 separate playthroughs, the apartment's like semi-randomized too. Huh? Because like I don't know where you found your like iodine or whatever you had to drink. Like you had to drink your.
It was in a cupboard.
Mine was in the first time too. Mine was in a cupboard the first playthrough, and then my second playthrough was in like a dresser drawer. Because I went right to the cupboard to be like, all right, it's going to be right here. Opened it up. Nope.
Well, that opens up some questions. Huh. Yeah, generic, yes, I would agree, but just like it worked very smoothly.
Not generic in a bad way at all, but I'm just like, there was, other than like which I honestly forgot about, the grabbing things and moving them with your hands, and kind of like, sometimes if I'd get frustrated with that mechanic a little bit, I'd just like walk backwards while holding a door to open it. But it worked well and it was fun.
I also got super frustrated at one point where there's like, I think you're being chased by an enemy and you have to like open doors, but some open from the left and some open from the right. And I was
don't know. Like, you're just like,
and I know if I stopped for a moment and looked, I could see which side the handle thing was on, but I just, you know, I was panicked. Graphics and sound, also, I would say, were just very tight.
They did a very good job at unnerving you with the sounds.
The sound design was strong. I think we talked. It felt at moments like my footsteps, and I only noticed this early on. Either I got used to it or something changed. It seemed like early in the game, my footsteps were a bit out of sync.
That's what it felt like, but I kind of continued to pay attention, and it's just almost like I don't know if it's like a delay or an echo or what it is, or if it's like your legs are just moving differently than, you know what I mean? You'd assume they would.
And it also seems like to be kind of off track with the head bob or something sometimes.
Yeah.
You know?
So kind of that would unnerve me because I'd immediately think that there was something following me.
Yeah.
Or something like walking around near me, and I'd be like, oh shit, and I'd stop walking. And when I'd stop walking, like the beginning of the game, there was multiple moments where I'd hear that and I'd stop walking and I'd be like, it stopped. Okay. And keep going, and then be like, oh.
Yeah.
And then
yeah.
I'm like, oh, I think that's just me.
Very, very powerful sound design. Always, like every environment felt very alive. It was, you know, and the sounds changed as you got through different parts of the game. But everything was, you know, flowing or dripping or clanking or humming or buzzing.
There was constantly some sort of ambient noise going on somewhere in there, yeah.
And it all felt very realistic and in the sense that it just, each room felt like a room, really. Like you really felt like you could sense the whole area around you. And you know, the graphics for a game that is now 9 years old,
decade,
looks great. I mean, I think graphics have been perfect for a long time.
Yeah.
In terms of like, you know, hey, can you achieve general photorealism, like a stylized photorealism?
Yeah.
Like then, you know, like what more could we ask for?
And like I felt immersed a lot of the time, you know what I mean? Like I was genuinely panicked at several moments in the game and like really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
They did a very good job of like making you feel, and I was never like, oh, this feels like, I mean, it's a game, but I was never like, oh, that looks fake or that looks weird. Or
No, and they did such a good job of combining these weird aesthetics of like, you know, the organic sort of biomass kind of stuff mixed with just the laboratories and the industrial stuff and the ships and all everything. And then also the exteriors were very cool. And even just like in the intro, when you go to the office building, you're like opening the shades and stuff. Like it all felt.
Yeah, like I walk over, I'm like, well, it's dark in here. And I was like, oh, there's a light switch probably over there. And I walked over and I like turned on the light switch and I'm just opening drawers and I'm walking around and I'm like, this feels weird. Because it is supposed to feel kind of weird.
Right.
Because you're supposed to be kind of nervous about this whole thing. You know what I mean? And then you walk into this empty room and I'm like, well, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This feels unnerving.
They everything came together to really build tone very well. I think distinct tone throughout every portion of the game. So, hey, hats off. Oh, also, I thought the vocal, like,
hats off.
You know, voice acting and, you know, just basically the acting and the delivery was all like pretty good.
Oh, the voice acting was great. There was really, like in a lot of games, there's a lot of like very awkwardly delivered lines, especially like short little things or when like you run into, I don't know. This was very well directed, very well done.
Yeah. And the conversations felt natural. Like there wasn't that weird pacing thing that happens sometimes where it's like a line is loading. So it, you know what I mean? It all felt really, like you said, well directed for sure. And I really felt that direction in Simon's performance, especially because as you go through the game, well, he changes in many ways, but his demeanor changes quite a bit, and you can really
he goes back and forth throughout too. Yeah, there's like moments where he kind of starts to come back up a little bit and feel a little more positive about things or so, and then there's moments where he's just absolutely, you know what I mean, like what am I doing here? You know?
And I found that very endearing that he could kind of be cheered up sometimes.
Yeah, like
it's kind of like it's very real.
Like I don't know, like you survive something and you're like you kind of have that little bit of rush going and you're like, okay, yeah, we're doing this. You know what I mean? We're doing it. Yeah,
even though you are like looking death in the face, like you can kind of, I don't know, I've been in situations with people where it's like, you know, realistically you can sometimes find humor or joy in a horrific scenario when you're really in it, because it's like, oh, you know, you don't always respond the way you think you would.
No, not at all.
And I like that the game wasn't afraid to kind of like let the character be very dynamic in that sense, where sometimes he was very sullen, sometimes he was very determined,
the character's very
apathetic,
human,
very. Did they ever say what SOMA means? I never even looked that up. Is that like a Greek word or something?
There's a Strokes song called SOMA.
Oh, it's got to be about
that. And I think it's definitely about that.
Somas were the painkillers that all the wrestlers were.
I'm like, Soma was a painkiller. It was like, I don't know if it was an opioid. It might have been like, I think it was pre-opioid, but it was like Soma was a painkiller that people would take back in like the 80s.
Up into the mid 90s
Yeah.
for sure. Cause, everybody was doing them.
Yeah, the Strokes were, they liked doing drugs.
Soma, also loosely translated, means a kind of drink of the gods, a drink that bestows a kind of immortality from the Rig Veda, Sanskrit, Vedic texts, the Hindu Bible, but also refers to a state of happiness and or enlightenment in the hymns thereof.
Okay.
Well, that makes sense because there's a lot about...
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll get into it, but at points I thought it was a little heavy-handed to be like, okay, you don't need to include several Buddha statues in the game. I get what you're talking about. You know? That was like, I got one would make sense, but I saw a couple. I get all right. There's little sluggo hairs and minnow hairs everywhere,
Just floating around.
so I'm gonna give a brief overview.
Go for it.
The game opens, it's 2015. Simon Jarrett is driving in the rain. He's talking to a woman, Ashley, and
They have a weird relationship.
yeah, something's going on. He's trying to say something, and she's like, and then they get T-boned or something, and her lungs fill with blood, and she dies. And he's left with...
I didn't get that detail.
Oh.
I missed that detail, I guess.
I think it's in the... there's a newspaper clipping you can find in a drawer in his room.
Oh, I don't think I read it that thoroughly.
Yeah, I think she dies before the ambulance comes, and he's left with an injury where his brain is swelling. It's causing his like basically his like hairline to like bleed, and
Yeah, it's like a permanent brain bleed.
yeah.
Yeah, which is not good. His hairline
So
is bleeding.
I think that's where it starts to come from.
Yeah.
So he's talking about the bleeding in that scene.
In the opening scene?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's having a nightmare. It's not necessarily like you're not seeing a flashback or like a cutscene, like an establishing shot.
No.
It's, and then you wake up and you're Simon Jarrett in bed. But I think it's interesting that the game like starts with sort of like, there's one conscious version of Simon existing in the dream.
Yeah.
And then
You're snapped back out of
yeah, and it's
back
like,
to reality. Whoop, there goes
I don't
gravity.
know. There's not, I mean, I don't want to look too deeply into that, but it's just like, it's interesting that even from the very opening, they're building on that theme of different iterations of oneself in different realities. And you get a call from Dr. Munchie.
Yes, Dr. Munchie. David Munchie.
Yeah, Munchie.
I don't know.
Munchie. I think it's Dr. Buttcheese.
Dr. David Buttcheese. Paging Dr. Buttcheese.
And it's Munshi, I think. But it sounds like Munchie, like Crunchy Munchie.
Crunchy Munchie. Like the Munchies mix.
Yes. Like it sounds like Crunchy Munchie. And he's like, oh, you got your test today. Make sure you drink the tracer fluid.
You're like, got it, Doc. I love you.
You drink the tracer fluid. You take the subway or something.
Yeah, it's some sort of tram system. The tube. The metro.
Yeah, and you're in Canada. You show up at this place to get your brain scan. And I guess I won't go over all the particulars. So we'll just say he gets scanned. The idea is to use the scan to hopefully create a treatment for him because it's going to analyze his brain, and then they can do hypothetical treatments on the scan.
Yeah, they
of the
can
brain.
like remap it in the computer and then try to like run simulations and be like, oh, this worked. We'll try that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we'll find out what happens to that. But he wakes up and he's now in a space station.
Yeah.
And it's all weird. You eventually make contact with a woman.
Station.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
It looks like a space station.
It does look like a space
You think
station,
you're in
yes.
space.
Yeah. I mean, I did at first.
Yeah.
At first, I was like, this feels like Prey. And then
Which I think came out the following year.
2017, I think.
Oh, yeah?
Prey's
Oh, you're right. You're right. You eventually make contact with a woman named Catherine Chun, who is advising you to meet her where she's at or whatever. And you're just like, I don't know what's going on. I gotta get out of here.
Yeah, you're like,
this place is scary. It seems like there's hostile entities here.
And she's like, just get to me and it'll be okay. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, you find out that Catherine was the lead developer on a project called The Ark, which was basically, let's upload people's consciousness into this augmented reality and then launch the capsule into space so that it can be powered for a long time.
They said like thousands of years potentially.
As long as the sun.
Yeah, as long as the sun continues to power it until the sun dies.
And so you're on a quest to launch the Ark into space and finalize that mission. And the reason that mission was so important was because in Catherine's time, a giant comet hit the Earth and killed everyone. So everyone who was alive were the people that were on the Pathos 2, which is an underwater it's like mining operation, basically.
Yeah, it's what it seemed like, some sort of deep sea industrial operation.
Yeah. And that's the basic gist of it. But I mean, it goes a lot.
There's more to it than that.
There is more to it than that. So to rewind, when you wake up in the apartment, I was really enamored with this apartment scene. I looked through every single thing. I thought it was so well designed.
Yeah, I opened up like all the drawers and like I opened up like your bedside drawers and anything it would let you pick up, I like picked it up and I read the front and back and stuff.
And I think it was a great way to get you to be, because it's like, oh, I gotta find where I stuck that tracer fluid. It's a great way to force you to get acquainted with the mechanics before there's any stakes.
Because that is really the only unique mechanic in this game.
Yeah.
Is the grabbing and opening things and like using that to explore and to like dive deeper into the story.
Yeah, and if you didn't get a chance to fuck around with that, I could see the game being like pretty frustrating.
Yeah, it would be, at least at first, you know what I mean? Like you'd be kind of pissed when you got to the first door with the monster chasing you and you couldn't open it. And then,
exactly. It's like, it's like cool. Like they created like a nice tutorial that also gives you just enough exposition to care about the situation.
Yeah. And also just funny, like little anecdote about this game is literally the weekend before we started playing it, unrelated because I didn't know what SOMA was about at all. I watched Total Recall for the first time.
Oh.
And then this game opens with the Philip K. Dick quote. And then there's like a movie that you can find in your apartment that isn't Total Recall, but it's like supposed to be.
Yeah.
It seems like it's supposed to just be Total Recall.
I forgot about that. Yeah. You watched the 80s one?
Yeah, the one with Arnold. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen the remake, no.
I did. I couldn't recommend it. I don't remember it.
I heard it was not great in general. So
yeah.
The original's great though.
The original's great.
I loved it.
Amazing. Yeah.
I love that whole style of movie. I don't know.
Yeah, it's very good. It's kind of lost now.
Yeah, absolutely. I miss it. It's something
I think the closest thing is like maybe like like the Guardians of the Galaxy or something, where it's like I don't know, like it's like a funny action thriller.
Yeah, and it's goofy. You know what I mean?
It's like I feel like
I
feel like so much of what I see in that genre now is like too self-aware.
Yeah, either too self-aware or it's taking itself way too seriously.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know.
Or it's just yeah. It's rare to find something that balances just like that little bit of humor, but really it's like a badass action movie. It's kind of just a watered down version of the R-rated, harder action movies that he and other people were doing.
Yeah.
Or they didn't always include any funny bits.
No.
It's and man, I mean, I'm sure everybody knows, but at that scene
Thumbelina!
at the end where his eyes are bugging out, it looks so fucking good.
It's so good, so good. The practical effects in that movie are great.
Yeah, it's really good. So it's hard. I'm assuming if you're watching this, you're already familiar with the game.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
Degree. Something that happens on the Pathos 2, the big station, which there's like multiple sites, but it's all part of the same rig, it seems.
Yeah. They're all part of the same whatever
crew. Same mining operation.
Yeah.
There was something called the WOW. It's WAU, and it was like a bioengineered AI that was kind of it was like an overseer to help with the main objective, which became to preserve humanity. And it could be injected with something called structure
gel.
Yeah, which the structure gel like itself could also be bioengineered, and it's almost like you're like directly injecting code into the WoW. through the structure
Yeah.
gel injections. That's how you could and that's kind of like how it came together. And then over time, the structure gel, we'll get into all that kind of stuff more and more, but the structure gel is something that people on Pathos 2, eventually when there's food shortages, some people start ingesting it. Anything that the structure gel makes contact with can be mutated and controlled or influenced by the WoW.
Wow, yeah. And it seems like little leaks start to break out all over Pathos.
Yeah,
As
the whole
things start to
building is
degrade.
leaking the gel, so the gel's everywhere. So the entity is is taking over the entire operation.
Yeah.
I just found it very interesting how the structure gel is like analogous to the tracer fluid for me.
Yeah, I guess.
Like, it's interesting that he has this like fluid you have to drink and like
to take in.
and like oh, like you drink the fluid so we can do the scan and put you in the thing, and it's like later you need to get some fluid and get scanned, and you get
in the thing.
and do the thing, and you have to put the fluid in the WoW
thing, yeah.
maybe. It's just like there's like echoes like that I like. I haven't really had the time to
break it down
yet and to think too deeply on it, but I don't know. Maybe there's no deeper meaning. It could just be variations on a theme throughout, and as you see, these different different parts of Simon's experiences throughout the game, there's these recurring imagery and things that part of me wonders if the brain scan in 2015, if his memories of that are influenced by things he experienced later.
Oh, on Pathos?
Yeah, because I think it depends on how you look at things, but if you're playing as, there's 4 different versions of Simon you'll encounter throughout the game.
Yes.
I'm kind of leaning toward the fact that you might be Simon 3 the entire time up until the point you take on Simon 4 in the very final scene. And if that's true, then everything you're experiencing up to that point is kind of his memories, which may have been altered. And the fact that you said the tracer fluid is not in the same spot on each playthrough necessarily makes me wonder if that is, the fault of a faulty memory.
Right. It could be.
It could be. And beyond that, when you first wake up in Pathos, you don't know that.
You still have hands and limbs, and you're still wearing the same clothes that you were wearing in the doctor's office. So your
perception and your memory of things is kind of tainted.
Yes. So
I don't know. I'm sure there's some SOMA superfan who could argue with us about that, but that's just something I want to put out as like a
Yeah, I don't know, because I view them. That's an interesting way to look at it, because I view them each as like entirely separate entities. You know what I mean? Like the original Simon is a totally different Simon than Simon 2. Simon 3 is a totally different Simon. It's like they are the same up until that point, but the moment that they diverge, they're 2 separate people.
Right.
Because now they have 2 separate experiences. But they've had the same experiences up until that point.
It's plausible that you are experiencing Simon 1, then you experience Simon 2, then Simon 3. It seems just as plausible that you are Simon 3 remembering things up until a certain point, and then I think it's impossible to tell, and that's kind of like one of the main things in the game is which version of Simon are you?
Yeah. Because that's really Simon 3 is the only one that I don't know.
That you know for sure that you
are. I guess maybe.
Yeah. So we'll
the
get
only
into
one
it.
that's Simon sure that he is. You know what I mean?
It's hard to say. So when you get onto the public transit system, you get a phone call, and you work at a bookstore. Maybe you own a bookstore.
Yeah, it's like
or
a bookstore,
manager,
or a comic shop, or something like that.
I can't remember what his role is, but
in the apartment, you can find an email that you forgot to send to him.
Yes. telling that, oh, I'll be away because I have this operation or this this
brain scan.
brain scan.
I'm a lab rat.
Did you take the call?
Yeah, I took the call. Yeah,
You can ignore the call.
I did not know that.
And it's funny to think of that where it's like, you know, I don't know. It's just.
What do you mean?
If he didn't call and he didn't send the email,
Yeah.
it's impossible to know like how much he kept in touch with those people afterward. It's like,
after the brain scan and stuff.
yeah. And it seems like it's not super long after the scan that we find out Simon passes away because the treatment was unsuccessful. So again, you can't read too much into it, but it's just these little choices are interesting.
Like,
because
could
it allows
that
you
have
to
been your
think,
last time to talk to him, potentially? Yeah.
potentially it is.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
don't know.
Well, at least this version of you,
Right.
the version that you're going to be in a moment, that was the last time that you would have been able to talk to him.
Right. So yeah, I guess we'll get into it more and more and more. You get to the place where the scan is happening, and I think by snooping around, you find files that suggest they're just like Dr. Munchie is not a doctor. He's going for his PhD. You're helping him with his
what did they call it? Like your thesis?
He goes, "Oh, is this for your thesis?" He's like, "Yeah." And I was like, the way he said it, I was like, "Is this legit?"
Well, because there's also where you're like, "Oh, Dr. Munchie," and he's like, "Not yet. Hopefully, you'll help me get there." You know what I mean? I'm like, "What do you mean by that? Like how?"
Right.
Like, I don't know, because whether your project fails or succeeds, I'm pretty sure you'll still get your doctorate. You know what I mean? Because you still
right. It's just
completed
crazy
a
that he's
research
engaging in
project.
something so, something so in depth as an amateur. Like he wouldn't have funding.
Yeah, and it seems like this mining operation,
Well,
or whatever operation they had
would,
going on
but-
underground, was like a private thing. It didn't seem like it was a government thing, which
Right,
means
and
that
so
like this
that's interesting,
technology
too.
would go into it'd be used in the private sector. You know what I mean? I don't know. So you know that he sold it inevitably. You know what I mean?
Or it's hard because eventually when you take things to a certain scale, like sometimes to get funding, you have to also kind of give the research. I mean, that's how we have the perpetual war system right now is because of military advancements.
where are we
Like
going with
everything
this one?
goes through science. Like all science goes through the military in the States,
Yeah.
basically.
That's the only any advancements that we see have been in the, you know what I mean? The military's had them for years, decades maybe.
So, anyway, when you get to the building, it seems empty. I loved opening the blinds and looking out and seeing Canada. You can see all of Canada from the window. And when you finally, go through, like, it's funny. The game sets you up pretty quickly where there's like a notebook where you can see a door code scribbled. It's not even clearly identified as a door code, I don't think. And it's also kind of hard to read the handwriting.
Yes.
And I noted that number, and then when I saw the door, I was like, oh, I'll just put the key in. And it worked immediately.
I'm also pretty sure if you wait for a moment, he'll call you, Dr. Munchie.
Really?
Dr. Munchie. Because I remember I wanted to find the door code in my second playthrough, and he started calling me. And I hung up. I ignored the call, and I was like, no, I'm finding the door code. You know what I mean? Because I assumed that he would have let me in. Be like, hey, I was just wondering if you're on your way. And you'd be like, I think I'm here.
There's
I imagine
so much
is where it would go.
subtle stuff like that.
Like little tiny things that would be a little bit different.
Yeah.
But mostly...
Which thematically works too, where it's like I'm talking about my experiences with it, and it's like it's not quite.
Yeah, like I didn't open the blinds at any point in there. I just walked over and turned on the
you
light.
can see people, and there's like a delivery truck or something. And,
Didn't even think about it.
man, and the way the sunlight fills the room, it looks totally different. It makes it a lot less scary.
Well, yeah, that's like I turned the light on, the regular old light.
Yeah, but I mean the sunlight really.
Yeah,
I mean, it
really
looks great. There's
unspooks
great
it.
natural light in there.
Just like in here right now.
So when you sit down, he's like, is this going to hurt? He's like, no more than having your photo taken. He goes, Indians thought that, cameras would steal your soul. And he goes, oh, let's hope they're wrong.
Right.
And that quote comes up again at the end of the game.
Yeah, no, you
when
say
you're
it
getting your
again.
final scan. And the answer to your to your statement the second time around is, oh, well, in this case, they'd be right.
Right. It's
like,
you go, oh, fuck.
I thought it was a really nice bookend for everything. So when you wake up, you're on Pathos 2. I got a little frustrated. I was like, what the fuck am I doing? And then I was like, oh, yeah. You got to break the window open.
Yeah, you see the cracked window. And I was like, oh, I can pick stuff up. And I just I don't even think I threw it. I think I just pushed the chair against it a few times and then it just shatters. And I was like, okay, cool. Let's get out of here.
Yeah. A lot of this game felt very similar to the sort of Silent Hill 2 style. Just keep going deeper into the nightmare. Just maybe you go down a tunnel. Maybe there's a hole in the wall. You just walk into a hole in the wall.
Yeah, and then just climb into the hole. Maybe that tunnel you go down, not the right tunnel. Maybe now you're cornered. Now you're stuck.
Yeah.
You have no way of knowing.
Yeah.
There's nothing telling you.
And you're just going forward.
Yeah. You find the occasional map on a computer or a map on the wall.
I had a hard time. I was like, okay, I'll try to remember that.
Yeah, same. Very hard time though. It's usually I'd just find a landmark and be like, oh, okay, that's a uniquely shaped room. I bet you that's that one. And then I'd be like, oh, okay, I'm here. I know this one's over here.
So I don't know how much I want to get into every, step by step, beat by beat part of the game. No. But I do have some notes here. So, when you meet Catherine eventually, first she's like, oh, I'm over here,
Yeah, she's like, I need you to get to me. You got to do these couple of things. I think that's right before that. That's the first time you go underwater and you realize that you're just in a dive suit.
Yeah.
That's when you first realize you start to realize kind of what you are to a degree.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you've just now stopped seeing your hands as human and stuff like that. And you're seeing the dive suit hands.
I think there's a scene where it kind of
it starts. I think it's when Catherine's talking to you.
Yeah.
And she's like, you're not, you know what I mean? You're a robot or whatever, effectively.
Because before that, you meet someone and you're like, hey, and he's like, what do you mean? I'm human. Shut up. I need help.
Yeah. There's just a robot on the ground. You're like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, obviously I'm fine. What are you, what are you? Yeah.
And then right prior to that, there's also a person who's connected to a console through these weird tubes. And it's almost like you disconnect them from life support.
Yeah.
And because you need to power on that console to contact Catherine, you're trying to send a signal out to whoever. You have no idea where you are.
Which is a recurring theme, that disconnecting the thing from life support.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes just by unplugging the little plugs,
Yeah.
And I don't know, it felt bad every time, man.
Yeah, totally.
It didn't feel good ever. There was only one that felt okay.
I think right before you get to this point, you see your first big enemy. It's a big.
Yes.
It looks like the robot dog monsters from the Wolfenstein games, I think, by my memory. Okay.
But yeah. It's this weird big lumbering creature.
Yeah.
It looks like it's covered in barnacles and glowing things.
And you're back in a corner probably when you first see it, and you hear it coming. Yeah. And then there's on the far side of the room, there's a hallway.
Yeah.
And you can see the lights of it before it comes through. It's a very good entrance.
And something we should mention too, Matt played the game on easy like a baby.
Well,
I played the game on normal.
I played this part on normal.
Oh, you did play this part on normal. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. All right, I'll give it to you. I'm sorry.
And this was good. You got to kind of like run upstairs and shut the door, and then it finds its way back up. You got to go through blah 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 blah. Eventually, you get to the comms tower.
Yep.
And the dome, the comms dome, or whatever.
Yep. That whole thing collapses. Like it gives way to the water. Yeah. That's when you're underwater, and then you get to Catherine.
Yeah. And like it seems like I don't know. There's so much. So eventually, when you get to Catherine, she kind of explains the deal about the Ark and this and that, and you're like, well, basically, just to recap, comet hits Earth, life is vanquished.
Just like your iPad almost was.
Life is vanquished. Life with Louie, and
Pathos 2 is as far as they know, the only surviving humans, period, on the planet Earth, because they're so far beneath the ocean.
Yeah. And the Ark was like a personal project that Catherine was developing, and I mean, there's a whole deeper backstory to that as well.
That
like,
we'll get into pretty soon, honestly. Yeah.
But I mean, essentially, the idea was, like we said, launch the Ark into space so that the people's consciousnesses can live on for as long as humanity would have lived on anyway, because when the sun burns out, humanity's done.
Yeah, we wouldn't have had any chance anyways.
So, the idea is, she's like, yeah, I don't know why, but we, it looks like, we didn't get to launch it, because you do like a little tracking thing. You can see like, oh,
yeah,
the Ark is over here. You're like, all right, well, it won't be easy to get there, but let's do it, and he's like, let's fucking launch the Ark. Like,
yeah.
And so you have a little Omni tool.
Yeah, you got a little
that's like used to like,
it's like a lockpick. It's like a digital lockpick almost.
Yeah, kind of, it's like you can load on different key cards and security clearances.
Yeah.
And swipe them, and it allows you access to places. More like a key card than a lockpick. You're not breaking into anywhere.
It suggests that when there's places that you normally wouldn't be able to get into, that you can, when you get like the user manual on it and the guy's like reading it to you, or he's being real gruff. There's like a point where he's like, if there's a place you can't get into, try just swiping the Omni tool. Kind of works like, you know what I mean? You might be able to get in. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But sometimes there's a reason you can't get in somewhere, and that's,
But you can also load Catherine's
personality on there. Because there is like already an AI on there. Yeah. Of some sort that's kind of like just saying basic things to you, like loading Omni, or, like opening door. And then you put Catherine on there and it deletes that one. And then there she is on your little palm.
There's stations where you can insert your Omni tool. That's where you apply the different chips and different clearances and different settings to it. But she's only conscious when she's because she's on the Omni tool, and the Omni tool is not plugged into anything. She's not. She doesn't exist. I think she describes it as like a void of consciousness.
Yeah, she said there like time. It's not like time. It's not like a dream or anything, or like you're sleeping. She's like, it's more just like there is no time. So she has a really hard time kind of keeping track of what's going on throughout the game, and like where it takes her a minute to get her footing every time to be like, where are we? Yeah. Okay. Well, that's right. We were doing this. Okay. All right. Cool. It's like very disorienting for her.
Because it's like, he's like, I was like sleeping. She's like, no, because you're going to go to sleep, and you can kind of like, you go to sleep. Yeah. It's not like, go to sleep, oh, no, I'm awake, know? Like, that'd be very disorienting.
Yeah, that'd be terrifying, kind of.
When you decide to take this journey on, you have to get to where the Ark is. But it's I think it's in the abyss.
Yeah, well, in the Phi is in the abyss. There's like two.
Phi is where the space gun is. I think Tau is where the Ark is.
Yes, Tau is where the Ark is. Yes, so Phi is in the abyss, and Tau is not in the abyss. Correct.
But I think it's still in a pretty
It's at like the edge of the abyss. Tau is like nearly as deep as you can go. If I remember it, when you get to Tau, to enter it, you've got to like go through the catwalks and stuff that are like hanging over like this. I think it's like the Marianas Trench or something, basically. You know what I mean, but
yeah, I mean, you first, it's like, oh, well, to get there, we need to like, we can take the dingbat or whatever it's called.
Oh, the Dunbat.
The Dunbat. And it's you need a vessel that can withstand the pressure of going that deep underwater.
Yeah, because anything else will collapse. Just like James Cameron. He needed his special one man, or the other one that didn't do so well.
The other one didn't do so well. Enough said. And the Dunbat, you get to it. Oh no, it was alive. It freaks out.
It's corrupted by the WoW. And you can find files later where they're like, they were aware of that before. You know what I mean? They're like, we can't use the Dunbat. Yeah. Like they had come to that. It seems like you're kind of like following the path of the team that tried to launch the Ark the first time. To a degree.
Yes. You're also following the path of some other people.
Yes.
As well, who tried to get to a point, I think called
Alpha?
Yeah, Alpha. Yeah. So
Site Alpha.
When the Dunbat fails, it's like, oh well, we could, there's like special suits we could wear. You could wear, we can get one of those maybe. Okay, well, we'll get that, and then there's like an elevator you can basically take down. But
Simon's like, well, I'm already wearing a dive suit. You know what I mean? Like, is this other suit gonna fit over the suit? And Catherine's just like, yeah, they're big. Yeah, they're big. You'll fit in there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't worry about it.
And so the entire time you're trying and failing, but you keep persevering. And there is that sort of thing where Simon asks a lot of clarifying questions throughout the journey, and Catherine's almost always like, yeah. And she's clearly being dodgy.
She's at times dismissive, where she'll kind of like avoid the question even and just be like, well, don't worry about, you know what I mean? Like right now, that's not what we need to worry about.
Because she's solely focused on her one task.
Yeah, which is to launch the Ark into space. And because I mean, in her mind, she's saving humanity. So like, that's a massive undertaking. And like, that's her dream. She's been working on it for years. As she's now living inside of this Omni tool, you know what I mean? So she's like, I have to just like, I have to do this.
Right.
This is the only purpose I have left. You know what I mean? It's like she has to achieve this. There's nothing. She has no other drive at all. I'll take a little bit here.
So it's funny that she tries to do these like mental gymnastics, be like, I didn't lie to you. Yep. It's like, yeah, but also when he says like, this is the thing, right? You go, yep. It's like, Simon, you should have known that wasn't what I meant, you know?
Well, it's like
she deceives him, but she also doesn't outright say a lie to him often. She's often lying by omission.
Yeah, it's hard to say that she's deceiving him. She's almost at times just like, well, she's not like fully explaining it sometimes.
Right, really, but I think very purposefully, because he's going, now we gotta transfer our consciousness to the Ark, and she's like, yep. Mm-hmm. And it's not a transfer, it's a copy.
Well, yeah, but I mean, and the thing is, it's like, I guess from my perspective, is like, I knew that by that point as the player.
Right, and but Simon didn't.
Well, Simon doesn't really know any more than you do, because you're kind of, I mean, like in my mind at least, Simon is also discovering these emails and finding these files and stuff like that and reading through this stuff.
I think he's having a hard time keeping it straight because he feels like he's been lied to by the end.
That's fair, but he's also getting he's constantly getting those, you can get the echoes when you find either black boxes on dead bodies or some of like the broken, like, just like shit on the wall. You can like occasionally get echoes and stuff like that. And that's, I don't know, those people are kind of talking about it at times too. About how the Ark works and stuff like that. Right, but
he's not. It's like he's not able to retain that information for some reason.
Yeah, that's fair. It could be too that it's like because at the beginning your mind is trying so hard to cope with what's going on, you're not even seeing that you're not human. Right. So maybe it's that his mind won't even like let him really accept.
It's kind of like he is really focused on trying to see this thing through. But it's funny that she's willing to kind of, you know, be. I don't want to. Just to be. She's dodgy sometimes about stuff. Well, and even, you know, with one of the big ones with, you know, where Simon 2 becomes Simon 3, she wasn't really forthright about what that meant.
No, not really at all.
And so I guess
that was another one where it is just omission, because she doesn't ever at any point say anything. He just doesn't really ask the right question.
Exactly.
And she doesn't,
she's willing to it seems like at any cost she will accomplish her goal, which is to save humanity.
Well, I mean, that seems clear even in if this is Catherine 2 that's on the Omni tool. Catherine 1 seemed to have that same mindset
exactly. Too. But here's the thing that I think is so interesting. The WoW is doing the same thing. The WoW has the same goal as Catherine. It's just two entirely different interpretations of what it means to protect human life.
Yeah, because she says, I believe it's Catherine who says it at one point. She says that the WoW can't do anything that we don't, you know what I mean? Like, not that we don't tell it to do, but the WoW can only like mimic things we do. It can't like create its own original thoughts. You know what I mean? It can only do what we're doing effectively.
And so like one of the big issues with the WoW is like, you know, you'll find those people who have been pumped full of structure gel. They're basically kept on life support. They're moaning. One or two of them can talk.
Yeah, but most of them are just like...
They're basically catatonic. Yeah.
They look like husks.
Yeah, but they're alive. They're pulsing, they're breathing.
You can see them.
The thing is, you know, the WoW was given the directive, preserve human life. It doesn't really know what that means. Like, what does it mean to preserve human life? It has a very narrow definition of
I think that's
human life.
Well, I think that's the whole debate of the game is, you know what I mean? Is human life your consciousness? Is it your humanity?
Right.
Is human life are you trying to keep humans alive or humanity alive?
Right. And so
You know what I mean?
when the WoW thinks about it,
and even then it's not even, I don't even know if that's putting it right.
The WoW is like, well, it's trying. It's doing all these different things.
Mm-hmm.
Like even, you waking up as Simon Jarrett in 2015, when you wake up 100 years later for the first time on Pathos 2,
Yeah.
that's because the WoW used your template and put you in a thing.
Yeah, it created you.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes the WoW is going to be putting, personalities into or consciousnesses into robots. Sometimes it's going to take a human body and keep it on life support. It's like the WoW seems to understand both ends of it.
Yeah.
But Simon represents something very particular where the body that he is first inhabiting as Simon 2. So Simon 1, Canada, 2015.
Yep.
Simon 2, 100 years later, wakes up on Pathos 2 in the diver suit.
Yep.
What that diver suit actually is, I think the person's name was Imogen Reed.
Yeah, I think it's Imogen Reed. I always want to say Imogen Poots.
It seems like the WoW somehow took, or someone else. It wasn't clear to me who did this experiment, or
yeah, it's not clear on what happens because I mean, you find experiments later where they're kind of doing this to rats to a degree, where they're taking like a dead rat, they put a little bit of circuitry on it, introduce structure gel, and then the rat comes to life.
But the thing is, Reed's body was filled with structure gel. Basically, a thing was inserted in its head.
Yep.
And the body then became a vessel for the scan of.
Yep, and I think it's because it was
Scott. What's
Simon Jarrett.
Simon's mind went in there, and so he was
missing like the top of her head. Like she didn't, and so there was like some weird cortex chip put in there. You know what I mean? And then you were put into that, and
right.
So
and you see flashes of her at times,
every now and then, yeah,
because the mind and body are still connected, and so when a different mind goes into that body, it's gonna still have like remnants of that person's original memories or their soul even.
And there's also, they could be also have to do with like, they all have black boxes on Pathos too. So it could be like the black box interacting with the cortex chip that was put in there or whatever.
Well, the black box is in the head.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So her black box would have been removed.
And I think it was the WoW that created you, because it seems like that's kind of what the WoW is.
Well, the
practicing
the
with
WoW
the
put
fish.
you into Reed's body. I don't know
Yeah.
if the experiments on Reed's body were done by the WoW. The body existed first, and then the body was used as the vessel. You know what I'm trying to say?
I
it's
know what
kind of
you're
like,
saying,
Catherine was also had the same operation done, have her scan put into
the robot.
But like, it's just this robot was different because the robot that Simon.
Yeah, Simon.
I don't know why I want to say Scott.
Great Scott.
The body that Simon went into was, it had that fusion of a human
It's a
body.
cyborg,
Yeah,
effectively.
but there's no other ones. I don't think. I think it's the only one.
You might be right.
And that's explained
As long
somehow.
if the transmissions videos aren't canon.
They aren't entirely.
Yeah, because there's that one guy who comes back in and he's all goo,
Right.
but he's a human body inside of there too.
So yeah, I just think it's interesting how I keep saying that phrase.
I just think it's so interesting.
But I really do. It's just like all I can kind of do is like ponder it. It's kind of just the fact that, you think that maybe I could see a player going, I really don't agree with Catherine's actions, And it's like, but at the same, she's not so different from the WoW, because the WoW is using its understanding and its intelligence to the best degree it can to preserve human life.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just funny how it's like, it's funny that they're both doing the same thing, but they just have very different executions.
It's open to interpretation.
Yeah.
Because and I think whether or not you agree with like what Catherine's doing all has to do with whether or not like what you feel about the arc, and whether or not you feel the arc truly is like saving humanity, if that is humanity living on in the Ark.
Right.
You know?
And so, I want to get your take on this. So fucking one of the people, when it becomes clear that the Ark is maybe going to be really important for a way to let humanity live on, it was like, hey, who on Pathos wants to, I think it was right before, as the comet was hitting, because some people like left Pathos too. They're like, I'm going to go die on my own terms up on the surface. Like, things were still happening. And there were even, I think, transmissions to Pathos from people on the surface.
Yeah.
But some people stayed on board on Pathos too, which that's another echo of that sort of choice. It's like, do you want to
is this really survival?
Yeah.
Do you want to continue to live even if there's nothing outside of this? You know what I mean?
And it's like people went both ways.
Yeah.
And I thought that was very cool. And then people on here could then choose to another path. Do you want to be scanned and put into the Ark? And what happens is one of the patients that do the scan, what's his name? My notes are very messy.
But he starts almost like he gets almost like a following to a degree.
Right. Mark Sarang.
Yes, Dr. Sarang.
I think he may have been one of the guys who had the Buddha statue in his
I'm pretty confident,
in his room.
yeah.
Which, like enlightenment and reincarnation, all these like kind of like Hindu topics that like I don't know anything about that religion or those beliefs. I just know like what Western media has like plucked from them and been like, this is what it's like.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm sure it's a lot more complicated than that.
Right.
And
it is.
Reincarnation is, associated with that belief system at very least. So maybe it's because of his background, but he believed that if you killed yourself during the scan, that your consciousness would transfer
onto the Ark.
Because what happens normally is you do the scan and then you still exist. There's just a copy of you that exists on this chip.
It's weird because like you simultaneously like cease to exist and begin to exist at the same moment when that happens. You know what I mean? Because it's like the version of you that is sitting there in the chair being scanned in no longer exists in the Ark. You know what I mean?
Well, it never existed in the Ark.
It never existed in the Ark. That's exactly. So you're simultaneously you cease to exist, but then like you're continuing to exist. You will just continue to live outside of there, and the Ark version of you will have its own separate life after that. It's like a branching point almost.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But he believed in the continuity where it would be no, Simon 2 would basically just like Simon 3 would be Simon 2 because Simon 2
killed themselves as they
ceased to exist. So there is no Simon 3. There's still only the original. Or I guess you're still Simon 1 at that point. I guess
at that point you would still be the OG Simon,
And and that was his belief. And that's just another way to interpret these concepts that the game presents. Like there's different characters that represent different interpretations of these values. And I don't think any of them is written overly explicitly in the way where it's like that's the villain or this is the good guy. It's all really like everyone's just kind of interpreting on their own way, and they all have different like levels of impact on the story.
And it seems like really the only reason that Catherine is even mad at like Sarang or views Sarang as a villain is only because it's like the more people that do that, the less likely it is that they'll allow her to continue her research. And inevitably, because so many people do that, they make her stop the research.
Yeah.
And they make her stop the scans entirely.
Now, and I don't know what happens there, but they still have the Ark at that point. Even though the scanning project is done.
Yep.
Some people have been put onto the thing.
The Ark.
So
I believe they end up at some point in the story, like of what happened before you got there. You know what I mean? Is that at some point things start to fall apart so much that they make the decision to start scanning people again once everything's fallen apart. You know what I mean? Once it's back to where they're like, okay, shit, we got to get the Ark here. Anybody who hasn't been scanned, we can scan them now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who wants to be scanned? Because there's also a whole contingency of people who don't want to be scanned.
Right. And it's funny, yeah.
Which seems weird because you stayed on Pathos 2 to begin with.
But each of those junctions is just like another totally different worldview.
Because at that point, I mean, like, I guess like if you're like, okay, well, I'm still down here. I'm still me, though. I'm still alive. It's a different life, but I'm still alive.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But like to me, the continuity represents like religion, like the idea of like, you know, religions where it's like, oh, like you can ascend to the afterlife, basically. Is like a tenet of a lot of religions.
Yeah, and that like you will continue. It'll just be you. It'll be a continuation of you.
But you have to believe in that. That's not. There's no proof of that, and there's no proof of the continuity.
No, there's no proof of the continuity at all. No,
it's just a concept he came up with. But you can't prove or disprove it.
No, because it's all based in belief. Yeah,
right. Which is, you know, I mean, do you have a take on it, or is it just kind of like, are you agnostic?
So I'm kind of, I mean, I guess I'd say I'm agnostic because I'm very much, I was raised Catholic, you know what I mean? Like I went to Catholic school and stuff like that. I was an altar server. But like, I don't believe in any of that. I don't think anybody can know what the hell's going on. You know what I mean? And to like assume you can is like, sure, you know, if that makes you happy, go for it. But I don't really want to do that. I'm just going to, eventually I'll die and I'll see what happens.
And that's what you bring to the game.
That's what I bring into the game, kind of. Yeah. It's like, eventually I'll just die and I'll see what happens. And the way I look at it is what I don't get, I guess what Simon doesn't realize at any point, which like when he becomes Simon 3 is when he does kind of realize it. But like Simon 1 continued to live. You know what I mean? Like just because he became Simon 2, he's now at Simon 2 isn't Simon 1. He's not a continuation of Simon 1. He's a new Simon when he becomes Simon 2. But he thinks he's a continuation of Simon 1.
But he would never know if he is or isn't.
Well, but I mean, like, the whole idea is that, like, based on the program, that your memories just start back up right where your last memory was. You know what I mean? So you would always feel like a continuation when you become that thing. But it's just like clones. There's just multiple versions of you. So, you know what I mean? That's all it is.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any continuity between the different versions of them. You know what I mean? I don't personally think there's any continuity.
I don't think
as far as consciousness goes.
Yeah, I don't think so. Because also it seems like here's the only reason why I entertain it.
Okay.
Because the soul is something we don't really understand entirely. There's a little bit of like, I've heard different like bits of scientific trivia that go, this is sure an anomaly. And sometimes I think like the soul is maybe just like something that we don't really have like scientific language for. Religion's maybe the easiest way to describe some of these more like metaphysical concepts that there is scientific research and evidence of and research into. It's just like, the only difference is, the group of experts we've decided are the experts and how they want to discuss the data. Some people, some people need scientific proof.
Yeah.
Some people need religious texts. But either way, it's like you're like assigning your value to these things.
Yeah.
And so like, because I can't really, there's so much other strange stuff that happens in the game where it's like, oh, well, that was an anomaly. Like we didn't think this would react this way, but this is happening like this. It's like, well, maybe there is some way that there's maybe a chance for the continuity to be a scientific possibility under certain circumstances, because it's also an unprecedented line of work that there's not been enough research into. So even though it seems like it could just be like a fanciful sort of like wish in a time of panic. Yeah. It's like,
well, I think even if you're thinking that, it's like hard to, it'd be a stretch, especially for Simon specifically, because we know Simon continued to live after the brain scan. You know what I mean? So if you want to say that his soul does carry on into Simon 2, his soul, you know what I mean? Then Sarang's wrong right away. You know what I mean?
Well, it's a coin flip, they say.
That's true. They say there's a chance you may not.
Right, which I don't think that's even true.
Because they say when you scan, because then effectively what they're saying is like when you get scanned, there's a chance your soul might leave your still living body and go into the ark. Yeah, you know what I mean. And it's like I just don't think that's how. I think that was.
I get what you mean.
I think that was wishful thinking by them as a way to like cope.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, with what they were doing.
And totally, but also I just think it at just as much as there's evidence for that, there's just as much evidence for.
Oh yeah, that's
this isn't. I can't call it.
That's my opinion on it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
I lean toward what you're saying.
That's the whole. But that's what's so interesting about this game is that you get to see the other. You know what I mean, in the different characters or the different like little echoes you get or the different emails you read and stuff like that. The clippings you find, you'll see those other opinions on it. Right. And then there's the people who are like, why are you doing this at all? You know what I mean? This is a waste of time.
Do they explain why he can read the black boxes?
Not really. I think it's just like something the WoW can do potentially. I don't know, because she asks about it when he starts doing it. She's
But
like,
he's
"Oh,
not.
you can."
He's not. He isn't. Well, he uses the WoW stuff. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to
tell
say.
because
That's
you're also
another thing where I go, that's
Yeah.
a weird anomaly that's like kind of left unexplained. Like there's, and that would mean like,
well, because anything
know.
else that's been brought back to life by the structure gel is being controlled by the WoW, other than you. You know what I mean? And maybe you could say, well, it's because you had your consciousness put into you, but there's robots that you find that are still clearly, you know what I mean, like have another consciousness put into them, but are under the, or maybe they're just corrupted. You know what I mean? Maybe they're under the control of the WoW. Who knows? But
what do you think of this? If the WoW created Simon 2, do you feel like sometimes the WoW was like, I guess what's unclear to me is the WoW trying to stop Simon? I can't tell because they talk about how like animals and things infected by the WoW like malfunction. It's not like the WoW isn't like a hive mind that's like attack.
No, they like it says like usually what happens is they come back to life, they become like aggressive, and then they die, and that's it.
Right. So that's
like,
why I
across
don't.
The board.
But also, God, I don't know how to get to this. There's also evidence that the WoW can be aggressive when it needs to be. And it's unclear to me if the WoW is actually trying to stop Simon or not. And if not, it's like, then it's almost like the WoW would have then like ascended into a more like a sort of like benevolent creator that like what finally merged like mind and body to create this like entity that had free will.
Well, I think
because the other things it created didn't have free will necessarily.
And I think the reason the WoW doesn't necessarily see you as a threat potentially or like really pay much attention to you is because you aren't human. And the WoW's focus is humanity. You know what I mean? And that's what it's focusing on. And then I just now popped into my head. I was like, it's more than likely you were probably whoever constructed you. You know what I mean? Whether the WoW constructed you or whatever. Probably Johann Ross probably had a hand in creating you. You know what I mean? To a degree.
That's also very possible.
Or at least into like the research that led to, you know what I mean, you being created.
Right. So Ross is another interesting figure who you see throughout the game. He flashes, and then eventually, I think you think he's an enemy, but
you see him as an enemy at first, and he's in like a dive suit at first. He's got,
that's
like
him.
like a BioShock style.
Yeah.
Or like a what's his name? Goddamn.
Thomas Zane
style, yeah. But yeah, and you don't know if he's an enemy or not, but he's one of the first enemies that you quote unquote enemies you encounter that like doesn't come at you.
Yeah.
Really, he doesn't attack you. He just fucks up your circuits and you can't see anything and it gets hard to see. Yeah. It gets loud.
He was part of an expedition along with Reed, or not Reed.
No. Fuck. There's so many names.
And they're all like real people names.
Yeah, that's the problem. They're not.
It's not like Lance Strong.
There's a Jay Hill in this game too.
God, my notes are a wreck. Strawfire, Catherine, Mockingbirds.
I can't.
This is killing me.
I kept forgetting Catherine's name when I'd come up to her, and during my second playthrough, I'm streaming, and I'd be like, "All right, cool. Now we're gonna put is it Christine back into the Omnitube board, and we'll talk to. Oh, it's Catherine. Catherine." Could not remember any of the names throughout it, and Simon too. I couldn't remember Simon ever.
Well, I can't remember this woman's name, but she and Ross were part of an expedition that was trying to, it's killing me. I can't remember her name now, but she created a special version of the structure gel that could be used to go into Site Alpha where the heart
of the WoW is.
Yeah. And that's like the source of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Poison it with the structure gel, you know? And so what, she had was they were trying to accomplish this. The WoW found out and did like an EMF pulse on everyone's black boxes and exploded all their heads.
Mm-hmm. When you find like that one that I can't, is it Phi? Where you find them all like that?
I think it's at Phi, but I can't be positive.
Or no, I think it's Tau.
I think you're right.
When
Tau.
you get into Tau, yeah, because you can't get into the front, and there's a guy with his
Yes.
head exploded in the front, and then you find the entrance, and there's just like 4 guys with all of their heads fucking busted
and then there's just a
open.
bunch more as
all
you go.
over the place. Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole place is filled with it, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So to get into the power suit that you need to go into the abyss, you need to get like a power pack, a Cortex chip, and some of this gel. And the gel you get is that modified gel.
Yeah.
And so
And it's kind of like you're not sure who it, you don't realize it's Ross yet that's leading it to you, but there's clearly something. It almost seems like the WoW, but there's some sort of entity.
it's like talking to you on computer screens.
Yeah, it's like giving you codes to like get into certain places, you know what I mean? And you mentioned a couple times where you're like, I don't really like this. I don't know how it feels like it's like you feel like you're walking into a trap.
Yeah.
Or you're being like guided, like you're being led into
Yeah,
to
it's
your
like
death.
something wants us to get here. Like we're not
and I don't know if I
here.
want to go where this thing wants me to go.
Right. And so, when you find the power suit, it still has a body in it.
Yeah, and then
And you have to like fill it with the goop and everything. And then you get into the dentist chair like you were in the first scene.
Yep.
And when you first with
The
our Dr.
pilot
Munchie.
seat.
Yes, the pilot seat. And then you get your scan and you wake up in the new body that,
Like, oh, sick new high
in the
pressure
power
dive
suit.
suit. Mhm.
And then you hear a voice and it's Simon 2.
Did it work? Catherine, why am I still fucking in this stupid ass body?
Do you let him live or do you kill him? You get a choice.
Okay, so I'll tell you what I did my first playthrough. So my second playthrough, I tried specifically to make. I didn't know whether or not your choices really affected anything, and aside from some dialogue things, you know what I mean, and like maybe there's like one small gameplay thing, but not even really. You know what I mean?
Right.
It doesn't really affect anything. It's all about how you feel and how it'll affect how you feel for the rest of the game based on what you did.
Mm-hmm.
So, first playthrough, playing on normal, struggling. The way I look at it, you'd just be leaving him alone, trapped here as the only semi-sane conscious thing just to inevitably lose whatever mind he has. You know what I mean? I killed him.
I killed him.
First time I killed him.
Yeah. And then second time you
Second time I let
did
him
the
live.
different to see.
Yep, just to
Quote,
see.
yeah.
Nothing happens other than what you say to like Catherine afterwards.
Right.
When you're on like because that's when you get to the lift that brings you all the way down or whatever. You know what I mean? The climber.
Yeah. And so once you're in the power suit and you've merged with the new body, Ross finds you and is like, go here, and he like directs you. It's like crazy. You're like going down a path and like you go into like a weird cave.
Yeah,
And there's like
he
is this where
interrupts you.
there's the spiders over the wall?
Yes, he
That
interrupts
was
you
so
in the
intense.
climber, and then you have to go down. And you have to follow the lights all the way to like site fire to fire
And
or whatever.
following the lights was so crazy.
It's so stressful too. In when you're playing on normal, because I forget you didn't play through these parts on normal.
I played on normal until the first part with the diver where you need to go through like a maze and find your way
You're
out.
trying to navigate your way around.
I couldn't finish that. And I put it on easy, and I still treated enemies as if they were hostile.
Right? Yeah.
But I posted about being frustrated. I had so many responses being like,
People agreeing with you. Yeah.
that like story mode might be superior, but secondly, that part in particular was like what made them.
I had to like take a break. That was like one where I died twice, and then I was like, you know what, it's kind of late. I'm just gonna come back to this tomorrow, and I did, and then I got through it when I came back to it the next day. But it was like, it almost felt like it made it easier because I had died a couple times or something. I don't know if there's some sort of. I know some games
I don't
have
think
that.
there's
where
like
after-
a dynamic difficulty,
but I might have just lucked out. You know what I mean? I think I
Yeah.
just lucked out by finding.
It could be.
And on my second playthrough, while playing through in safe mode, I figured out how you're supposed to survive that.
Oh,
You can find the one room where you can unlock doors. Did you ever find that room
Yeah.
in there? You can lock it in one of the rooms.
I thought that was much later in the game
No, it's this part right here.
because there's also one of no.
Yeah, because it's when you have to break the window to get into the one room, or you can unlock the door. When you were trying to get into the lift, the elevator. And then the elevator collapses.
I don't know. I know what you're talking about. Isn't there three? There's three of them, isn't there?
3 like sections like that?
No, there's 3 enemies in that area where you can lock them away.
No, there's just the one enemy.
There's just the one.
Yeah.
I don't know. And you're not underwater.
No, you're not underwater. You're just in the building.
I don't know.
Because it's when you go into like the laboratory or whatever, and then you like take her out and you walk out and you have to go through the clean room. And then you walk forward and there's like the elevator you can go into. And it's like, you got to figure out how to turn on the elevator. You know what I mean?
I guess I don't entirely remember. All I remember is there was a second later part where there was I guess there was multiple computers that let you control doors.
Yeah. But this is the first time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this is the first one.
I don't think I thought about locking anything in until later in the game.
It was only on my second playthrough that it clicked for me that you could do that. And then I did. I locked him in the medical bay and was just like, all right, cool. And continued to explore without being bothered.
Well, walking, down below the depths through the lights on easy was, obviously easy. The only thing that I found really difficult, or difficult in a really fun way, was sometimes there was like moments of where the next light was so far away, you just kind of had to trust what you were doing.
You could barely see it, yeah.
But I'm curious what it was like on hard.
On hard, if you don't get to it sometimes, or if you're not quick enough, if you don't time it right when the thing's near, it will pick you up and it'll like drag you way back and drop you somewhere, and you have to find
what
your
thing, the Leviathan thing.
Yeah, like the weird Leviathan thing that keeps swimming around, and like that, like you find the echoes of it killing another guy. You know what I mean? And they're like, "Stay close to the light."
Yeah.
That will pick you up and carry you back, and it'll happen a couple times before you die. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But it'll take you back, and you have to like find your way back to the lights, and it's super fucking terrifying. And there's also an anglerfish you can run into.
Yeah.
Yeah. You like exit the one cave that's full of spiders. Which I thought the spiders were going to be able to get me. I don't know. I didn't like the spiders at all. They were unnerving when you're like walking through the underwater
It's
caves.
one of the most intense, like, I used to kind of have like a fear of spiders, but I got over it by just having spiders on me a couple times. I'm like, I guess that wasn't that bad. What am I afraid of? I just kind of crossed that threshold. I don't like
being startled by anything. That's the main thing.
I get turned on by it.
If I like turn and there's say there's just like a spider coming down, if I turned, I might just hit it. You know what I mean? I'd be scared.
Oh, I would
but
go.
Like if you were like, hey, if you were like,
I'm sorry, Mr. Spider.
If you said, hey, there's a spider next to you, I'd go, oh, all right, cool.
Right,
and continue on.
right.
You know what I mean? But if I'm startled,
I guess what I mean to say is there's been times where I've understood a fear of spiders, even though I don't really feel that way now. But maybe one of the most intense spider sections I've ever seen in a game, even though it wasn't super aggressive.
Yeah, they weren't like really actually coming at you or anything.
But you were
you're so close to them, and they're so big, and they're all around you, like no matter where you go.
And they're moving so weird. And they're underwater.
You can't tell if they will eventually overwhelm you if you go the wrong way, maybe or something. I don't know. I didn't like it.
It was very striking.
This was probably the most stressful stretch of the game.
Yeah, and it looked
trying
so
to
good.
run from light to light. Like even on the stream on easy, I was like, okay, go. All right, we made it. All right, we got to that. Okay,
it looks so fucking cool. When you get to the site alpha down there before you get to Phi, because you need to get the Ark, and then when you get the Ark, you need to launch the Ark. So I think at Tau is where there's the loading bay, and then it sends it to Phi.
Yeah, it sends it down some weird track.
But before you get to Phi, and I'll go back to Tau for a little bit in a moment here, you do get the choice to kill the WoW or not, basically.
Oh, before this, you're offered another choice when you find the Ark.
That's true, yes.
There's one kind of important choice when you find the Ark.
You want to do that one first?
Yeah, I'd like to do that one, yeah.
So, a few times you can communicate with someone.
Yeah.
That isn't Catherine. You're like, oh, is this a person, you know?
But you don't know because you've talked to so many people that just end up being robots. So you're like, I'm sure that's just another. But they're accusing you of being a robot.
That's what's different this time. Yes.
That's what kind of made me be like, oh. And the door's locked. They've locked themselves in a room. And I'm like, okay.
When you get there, it's a woman on life support who has the Ark. It's rough.
She's not looking good. She's gray. She looks bad.
She's like, wow, I'm the last living person on Earth. And you're like, well, we're going to try to launch the Ark. Like, she's like, okay, do it.
Do it up. Unlocks it for you.
But I have one request.
You're like, what is it?
Kill me and then stay with me while I die.
And you're like, ha, yeah, you got it. And then you go and you do something. She's like, no. For real.
And did you do it?
Yeah, both times. So the second playthrough, I had like told myself that I wouldn't make the same decisions again. And on this one, I was like, I cannot justify leaving this woman alive down here.
Oh, I left.
You left her?
I was like, no, I couldn't.
Oh, okay. I was like, what?
And she talks for a while.
Yeah, she goes
as
on
she's
for a
dying.
minute. You can sit down on the bed nearby. You can like,
Nice.
I just
I didn't
wandered
know
around and
that.
I saw that you could interact with the bed and I clicked it and you just like turn and sit. And you just sit there and you're looking at her. She just talks to you the whole time.
That's good. It's powerful.
Very powerful scene. There's several moments in this game, whether they're the echoes or like something you read or like this scene in particular where you're kind of like, fuck, that's heavy. You find the one robot outside of, I think, Tau or one of the places, or Epsilon, whichever, Omicron, COVID Omicron, Persei 8, that's like, thinks that they're on the Ark. They're like, where is everybody? We're on the Ark, right? And you're like, yeah, it went great. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, that's so fucking sad.
Yeah.
And this woman just sitting there for the rest of eternity would have been devastating. You know what I mean? As long as it's like what, 200 more years that the thing can continue to function or whatever.
I think so.
It's something like that.
Yeah.
That Pathos 2 will continue to run on like auxiliary power.
Parts of it. I feel like other parts were like a few decades. So the next choice you do get though is destroy the WoW or not. What did you choose?
I destroyed the WoW my first playthrough.
Yeah.
I thought that the WoW was going to try to stop you from launching the Ark.
I did
thought it
too.
was really going to get in the way of it.
But it doesn't make sense why it would necessarily.
No, because it's
not really of interest to it in a way.
It really has nothing to do with it because its only goal is to preserve humanity.
Yeah, and that's not really a goal that's in conflict with that. Anyway.
It seems like the only thing that WoW would try to stop you from doing is killing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And if you do kill it, you have to sacrifice your arm, basically. You stick your arm into its butthole, and then it has teeth.
Yep.
I guess more of a mouth, but it looks like an anus. And and then Ross is like, "You did it!" And then like a Leviathan eats him immediately.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh shit.
That happens either way.
Yeah. It's also crazy. It's like he's just had this like impossible goal in mind, and then it happens, and he's just like dead.
So if you don't do it, you just kind of like try to leave, and Johan's like, "Well, I'll fucking make you do it." And you're like, "Well, you can't." And he's like, "Yes, I can." And I don't know what happens exactly, but he somehow like hurls you backwards. You know what I mean? Like back into the room and you're unconscious and you come to and he's like, "You have to kill it. You have to." And then the Leviathan comes up and eats him. Like, so the exact scene. So like normally you lose your arm and you stumble and then you come to on the ground.
Right.
Either that happens or you run. Johan attacks you somehow, and then you come to on the ground.
Damn.
And Johan gets eaten by the Leviathan either way. And then you can still decide to destroy the WoW or not after that. You know what I mean? It's still up to you. And I was still like, no, I'm still not doing it on my second playthrough. Thinking, let's see what happens here. But fucking nothing happened. Nothing. Didn't do anything. It was just fine. It was just, that's really, if I had any complaint about the game, any like big complaint, that's my only big complaint about the game. Is that your decisions don't affect gameplay. I like when decisions affect gameplay. I
do too.
And this didn't affect anything.
And it did a little bit, like you said, with some of the dialogue choices, but it just felt like, okay, you got some of those. I understand that like maybe even like a budgetary thing might keep them from like doing like massively different things. But I feel like there could be, and I don't know because I'm not a game developer, but it just feels like there could have been solutions to do more of that, but maybe it just really wasn't, something that
I feel like
could have really scaled up to where they wanted.
I feel like they even could have just done like an alternate ending if they just had two separate endings. You know what I mean? Which I get, again, budgetary and time restraints and stuff like that. It could
hard
be too
to say,
much.
Or maybe they just were happy with what they did.
Yeah, and I'm sure they were. I was also kind of hoping for something like a Fallout style ending where they're like, after the Great War.
Yeah, I know.
I love to be like,
after
the Ark was launched into space, Simon too wandered the halls of Pathos for, you know what I mean? Like,
that's a great like budget friendly way to be like, because you'll do shit in the game and it's like, oh yeah, I played it both ways. You don't really notice much.
Yeah,
maybe one faction will get mad at you or something.
Yeah, but then when you get like that the epilogue, or
it like makes it so much more real. You go, oh wow, I'm seeing the life of everything here, connected.
I like it. So that's my
games should do that.
Only big complaint about this game, and not even a complaint about it. It's just like what I felt it was missing. What I felt could have made this game even better was if I had that.
Yeah, I'd say that's one minor gripe I have, but also I like that it's more of a thought piece at the same time because it does excel at being one. Even though I would have liked more gameplay changes, if you're going to go, hey, it's really more about perception, well, you did very well nonetheless.
Yes.
So I have a couple other questions I want to see what you think. Okay, so one thing I thought was interesting was just like how Catherine died. We didn't mention this yet, but they were going to launch.
Because you find out actually we were about to get there in the story.
Oh, okay.
Because it's when you go and you finally
jump around so much. That's why.
Well, because you find her body right next to where you load the Ark into the rocket.
Yeah. Turns out, they brought the team down there to launch it, and then people were like, well, we don't know if the launch will even work. Like, it has to go through a bunch of space debris. Like,
yeah, and then they thought the tube was broken that it was going to launch out of too. They were like, it's going to go through some broken tube, through a bunch of dust and bullshit, and might just fucking blow up. Can it even survive through the atmosphere?
So maybe we just like wait and like give this more thought before just like, deciding humanity's fate. And Catherine says, it's my project, my Ark. And and then she takes it and like tries to grab it away from everyone and be like, I'm launching it right now. And the guy, one of the guys is like, no, this is bigger than just you. Like, and that's another like funny thing where it's kind of just like, Catherine created this world, this, and then all these people invested in that world. Yeah. And now she's kind of beholden to them. And it's similar. But she
was also very much like, as you find throughout the game, when you find stuff out about her, she was pretty antisocial. Yeah. And she says it to you too, that she never really felt like she ever had a friend. She doesn't really care about any of these people. Right. You know what I mean? She cares about her legacy, it seems like, and she cares about her project and her research. Yeah. It's all very selfish, it seems like, all the motivators.
It totally is.
She doesn't really care that these people survive. It's that she allowed humanity to survive. You know what I mean? That's what it's more about. So yeah, and this moment's very telling because she's like, no, we're launching it. I'm doing it. I don't care what happens as long as I get to say I did it.
And then she gets like knocked out and dies.
Yo, he hits her. You don't know exactly what happens. There's a bloody wrench on the ground next to her.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, there's a bloody wrench on the ground right next to her.
On the recording, he's like, it was an accident.
Yeah, I know. But because he's like, what did you do? And he's like, it was an accident. I'm like, that's a bloody wrench on the ground. It looks like he fucking brained her. Well, like, you could have punched her in the gut really hard. And you know what I mean? Like give her a rib shot. Give her a shot in the liver. Yeah. Take her out.
Just incapacitate.
Yeah, you don't need to hit her in the head with a wrench.
It's just kind of it's funny to think about how the WoW created something that would kill it, and Catherine also created something that would kill it, and yeah, it's just interesting. These like again more echoes.
Yeah, because they're like you said, they're both doing a very similar thing.
Yeah,
throughout the entire
but the consequences,
just in different ways.
Like it's like you're going to create life. That doesn't mean that life won't be hostile toward you.
Yeah, exactly. Because ultimately, I don't know. Nobody wants anything deciding everything wants free will.
Yeah, it's like you can't just play God. It's not. It's just when you try,
you get hit in the head with a fucking wrench,
or you get special gel in your booty hole and it kills you.
You get to eat an arm while you're doing it, but
yeah. Well, I've had an arm.
You had an arm or two up your ass, yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't think I could, and I'm not afraid to say that.
I don't think I could either. I don't think it's something I could.
I don't really think.
I wouldn't even want to. You know what I mean? There's no desire there.
I wouldn't want to necessarily. But I also don't think I'd want to go through the regimen it would take to get to that place.
It's a lot of hard work. I have a hard time like remembering to take my vitamins every day. You know what I mean?
If you start taking suppository vitamins, it could be much easier to work towards both goals. Yeah. Do a little TBOS.
I work my way up to ovipositing my vitamins into myself.
Yeah. All right, that's that segment of the show. Had to get one of those in.
Got to talk about something gross for a minute every time.
Raleigh Herber was Raleigh Raleigh. Herber was the woman who you inhabit her body as Simon 3.
Oh, okay.
In the power suit. That was her name. I found it in my notes finally.
I don't think that ever really matters, thankfully.
Well, it only matters just to know
whose body you're occupying, yeah.
And it's funny. It's kind of like, in some way, when he like she achieved a level of continuity because when Simon inhabited her body, he continued
he did
her will.
Yeah, he completed her. If you destroy WoW and you
Yeah.
launch the Ark, then you carried out everything she wanted.
It's
to do.
it's very interesting. These like, I just feel there's like remnants of the soul in all of these copies and clones,
Right.
and it's like, you know, that's the metaphysical part that I can't really comprehend. If it's like, is it coincidence or is it another one of these anomalies?
Well, then it's like, is it like a ghost in the machine thing where it's like it seems like all these people's consciousness were not only like uploaded onto the Ark, but just into the general system as well. Like it seems like all their brain scans are just like in Pathos. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there seems like there's like a library.
WoW seems to be able to like constantly pull from them and put them into robots or put them into things. You know, so you know, what's not to say that they're not in there to a degree, kind of also affecting things or, you know, having some sort of say in it. No.
It's hard to say specifically in that too, because like it seems like some of the personalities are like on chips. Are they stored on chips?
Yeah, that's like some sort of Cortex chip, I think, that you find, yeah.
And it seems like some survive longer than others.
Well, it seems like some are on the chip,
wondering where
and
the
then
backups
some
are.
Yeah, some are like on the chip, and then some it seems like they're like more just like the Tau being directly connected to something. You
The
know what
WoW.
I mean? The WoW, sorry,
Yeah.
not the Tau, because Tau is the site.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah.
So I guess here's something I want to bring up for you for your perspective on this. And we kind of touched on this, but I just want to try to get like a more thorough discussion on it.
Do you believe in God? What do you think happens when you die, dude?
Tell me all your thoughts on God.
'Cause I really like to meet her.
Bring back that kind of rock.
Bring back Dishwalla, dude.
You go see Toad the Wet Sprocket at the fair?
Strand. Yeah, are they going to be at the fair this
Yeah.
year now? They played at the Strand a few years ago too.
Oh, really? They're playing with the
Yeah.
Gin Blossoms this summer.
Oh, they're playing with the Gin Blossoms too at the
Yeah.
Clinton County or Champlain
I
Valley?
think at Clinton.
Oh. Hey, jealousy.
I love that
Blossom
song
Yeah, it's like-
so much.
Yeah. Hey, Jealousy is a great song. I know these songs because I like them. It's not like
I did an album a couple years ago at Wayward Sound.
Oh, okay.
I was completely inspired by
With the
trying
James Gang.
to do like their kind of stuff.
Yeah, just trying to do that like that
Like
era of 90s.
Well, specifically like the Gin Blossoms record that they did right for their major label record. There's a couple of the same songs on it. There's the guy who wrote all their good songs. Like, I don't know if he OD'd or he left, but it was not good.
Yeah.
And they kind of like went on and
I think he was really into heroin.
Yeah.
If I remember right, based on like
sounds right.
little black balloon stuff like that.
but they got big off his songs basically.
Yeah.
But the earlier versions are more hardcore.
Oh,
Not
okay.
entirely, but it's more like post-punk,
a little bit more,
post-hardcore,
a little heavier, a little more
faster,
raw,
heavier,
emotional.
more punk. It's more hardcore. It's like US hardcore. I like the emo is hardcore. You know what I'm trying to say? It's like hardcore 80s, late 80s, early 90s, the kind of like that crossover kind of shit. And it's I was so inspired. I was like, I gotta make a record like that. And I was like, it did not come out that way.
Well, at least you tried. At least you did something.
Yeah. But I'd love to do that kind of music sometime. No, what I'm curious about asking you is, I guess I'll put my theory forward.
Okay.
Is
And then I'll fucking
I really
apart.
feel like it's Simon 1 lived his life, he had the scan. I don't think that when we are controlling, well, I know this is what's happening, but I don't know for sure. I think that when we're controlling Simon 1, we are actually already either Simon 2 or Simon 3, because it seems very plausible to me.
I hear you, and the way that plays out, it plays out so differently, that opening scene than the second scene, because it's like you don't like leave your house and go to the subway station. It's like you're just suddenly like, here we are on the subway,
right?
And it's like, here we are. It almost seems as though what you're experiencing as Simon 1 is just like as you come online as Simon 2. This is like you waking up from that dream.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where like you've been an REM and now you're waking up and you're just remembering the last thing that you remember.
That's what it seems like
was
to
happening.
me. And again, might not be the case, but it feels that way to me, especially with what you're saying, the way you.
Yeah. So I don't think you
from scene to
necessarily
scene.
ever play as Simon 1. Obviously, there is a Simon 1.
Yes,
Because you're
yes.
based off of that scan, but I don't necessarily think you ever play as Simon 1.
Okay. So
I'm with you on that. That feels like a dream sequence at the beginning, kind of. Not entirely, because there's a dream within a dream, but it's like clearly just like an echo or something. Yeah.
the thing that I've read some theories about now, and like I've read both points on this, is are you always Simon 3? Because there's a chance that in the same way you were experiencing Simon 1's memories, you could have also been experiencing Simon's 2's memories. And it's not... I can see both sides of it, but I don't know.
I disagree with that. I think that because it's so impactful too, you know what I mean? Because you're also aware of the fact that Simon 2 is still there and alive, and Simon 2 does still speak. You know what I mean? I don't think it's a memory, what you're experiencing. I think you are playing as Simon 2 and then you transfer yourself. I don't think that you're Simon 3 the entire time.
Well, it's just that Simon 3 exists so close to Simon 2 that the memories would be that much more...
That much clearer.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying, but I just don't think so. I don't think so. I just don't agree with that. I don't see enough evidence I don't really see the evidence to support that.
Fair.
You know.
Now, do you think that it's possible that Simon achieved continuity? Because...
I mean, we haven't gotten to the end of we didn't actually talk about the end of the game.
Okay, well, in the end of the game, you finally get all the way down to the abyss.
Yep.
You're ready to launch the space gun, which I go, the space gun? Really?
Yeah.
Okay. And you're like, oh, don't we need to like transfer our consciousness into the space gun? And she's like, I already set it up. It'll be one button, so
does both.
It'll happen at the same time.
And you're like, sick, cool, got it. Boop. And then it's taking a minute to load, and you're like, oh, fuck. And then it says it completes the upload, and you're like, oh, thank God, rocket launches, and you're like, I'm still here. I'm still down here. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Catherine's like, you knew this was going to happen, Simon. I don't know how many times I have to explain this to you, but I'm not going to. And I'm like, kind of like, you've never actually explained it to me. I've put the pieces together on my own, but if I had not done that, I would not have known this.
Right.
You know,
because Simon thinks, oh, I'm going from this body to the next body.
Yep,
it's like,
zoom into
it's like,
that
no,
one.
you are getting, there's a copy of your consciousness that is being transferred to this thing.
Yep.
And not transferred, it's being pasted. It's copy and paste, not cut and
pasted,
paste.
yeah.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yes. You're copy and pasting something. It still exists in the original form, and now there's also this other version of it.
But then the screen goes black.
And you go, huh? And you're in this cave. It's kind of pretty. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And you're a human again. You're like,
You're
I
basically-
got my hands back.
I think you're in Morrowind.
Yeah, you think this is the opening of Morrowind.
If I'm, I don't know. I could be wrong.
You're wrong, but I think the arc is Morrowind.
You go out. It's beautiful. And then you see a woman in the distance. It's Catherine.
You go, Catherine.
We made it. And then that zooms out. You see the satellite just kind of orbiting, and you see Earth is still in flames somehow.
Yeah, somehow it's still burning.
It's just it's just fucked up.
Yep, not doing well. And then you kind of watch the satellite slowly drift away and effectively become like a star. You know what I mean? Is what it's implying. It's among the stars,
Right.
So you think? Do you think? What's happening, Minnow? Do you think
That's
Simon?
Sluggo.
That's Sluggo. Oh, okay. Do you think Simon achieved singularity or continuity? Continuity, not singularity. Continuity.
The fact that it's like that the screen just goes black when he's like, don't leave, because Catherine shuts off, basically.
Well, because the power's dying in
Right.
the whole place. It's what it seems like.
Right, but then everything goes black and it's silent. And it's like, is that just a transition to the next scene? Is that just a hard cut? Or the other, so there's two things that could be happening here, okay? because it is just black and then
Here you are on the arc.
that sounds similar to Catherine talking about how it's like, oh, when I'm like plugged in or when I'm unplugged, there's like this void.
That's fair.
And like that's a different transition than normally happens throughout the rest of the game. And it just felt like so
aside
sudden.
from the transition from Simon 2 to Simon 3.
Right, but it's different because like
Do you think Simon
'cause-
achieved continuity from 2 to 3?
no, I don't think so.
Well, then there's no continuity.
Well,
Because if there's no continuity from 1 to 2, then there's no continuity. Then no matter what, these are just copies of Simon.
you don't the way that it's presented is continuity is like it maybe it will happen, maybe it won't. Is how people talk about it a few times in the game, which I think is maybe an incorrect way of looking at it. But
I think it doesn't. I don't think it exists.
but people still consider it in the game.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's like a big consideration.
Right. That's why I
to
go.
take.
I don't think it exists.
Well,
But
yeah, but because it's the whole idea. It's like people believe, even the people who don't like end their lives as they're being scanned, still can believe or not believe in the continuity.
right, and it's
So
so
there's the people who aren't killing themselves who are like, it's still a coin flip. But I'm like, I don't think there is any continuity. I think it's just wishful thinking. I think it's a cope.
yeah, but it's funny how it just
like
goes.
Yeah.
Hey, the fate of Simon 3 is actually unknown now because it just goes black, and it's like, well, wait,
Yeah.
what does that mean? That hard cut,
I think
and then
it-
to wake up as Simon 4, it's like either he had a continuity change, or the other thing I think could be. Tell me what you think.
So here's what I think. Okay, you say yours first because mine's going to take half a second.
We were always Simon 4 because when you see that change, it's kind of just like, it's like you're waking up as Simon 4. It seems again potential that like, oh, that's just kind of like I'm just booting up because
Yeah, fair.
could you? But that would also suggest that there was continuity because, well, I guess it wouldn't. No, not necessarily. No, I take that back.
It could just be continuity from 3 to 4 also. You know what I mean? It could just be that version of Simon continues through. But it's like, so the way it happens when you go from 2 to 3 is you transfer over into Simon 3. You still hear yourself talking for half a second. Then you shut down. And then Catherine tells you he'll be like that for a few days and then he'll come back online. So I think that's just what happens to you when you go from 3 to 4 is you're still awake for a second being like, what the fuck, Catherine? What the fuck, Catherine? And then you go out. And then I think in a few days, Simon 3 is just going to come back online and still be stuck there. Same way that Simon 2 would have been if you had just left him there.
I know, but this is something that I'm realizing now. The player experience is a possible analogy for continuity, because you experienced that whole thing as you, and it's like, well, what does it mean to really be you? But if that, you are experiencing it as one.
It very well
continuous
could
thing.
be that meta. It very well could be that much of a, yeah.
And yeah, it's just funny because like all this still also happens like under the eye of an observer, like I have to put the consciousness into the arc.
And
there's
then
always
something
an
has to take-
observer.
yeah.
There's always like a god, basically.
Whether it's the WoW or whether it's, you know what I mean, like fucking Catherine.
Well, I guess not always a god. It's like the observer is sometimes the creator. Sometimes the observer is just another observer, just another being. But like, it's like, do you even exist if that observer isn't there?
Yeah, fair. Well, because it's like, I mean, it gets into the idea of like, I don't know. I just don't, it's like, what does it mean to be conscious? You know what I mean? What is consciousness? Like at what point, and like, what is it that, it's like your experiences are what make you to a degree. So it's like when you create this new version of yourself, it is now experiencing new things and you're experiencing different things. And you're like, well, now we're not the same person. It's like if you were to clone yourself in that moment when you first created the clone, you're the same. You know what I mean? But then the moment that you branch off in those different directions, now you're different things.
Yeah.
And that's all, some people probably don't look at it that way either. You know what I mean?
I think the game did a good job at leaving stuff open-ended enough that it's like, if you have questions, you're going to have questions.
And maybe that's why they didn't want the choices to affect anything.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't want to push you in any direction as to what you should think about it.
Yeah.
Because then if you
Right.
don't kill the WoW and then that's a negative, then that would mean that
Yeah,
that would be kind of a definitive answer.
Totally.
About whether the WoW is good or bad.
Yeah, there's no good or bad path. It's just kind of
No.
You know, and also you kind of get a good and bad ending in a way.
Because in the end, like Catherine says, she doesn't want to see whether or not you kill Simon too. She's like, I'm out. Just take me out of this thing. I don't care what you do. And then like whether or not you do it, you kind of have the same outlook for the rest of the game, regardless of whether you kill it or not. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting to think about. Maybe that's why they didn't want the decisions to affect anything, because they wanted it to be so open to interpretation. That could be it.
Yeah, it really is so open to interpretation. I've seen so many different like takes on it. It's just the kind of thing where it's like, man, I think people have also compared this game to Alan Wake 2, and it made me think a bit about how, like, you know, what does it mean to be you? Mm-hmm. What does, you know, it's like if it's a spiral and there's the loops.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what happens to Alan from loop 1? Is he having continuity across the loops? What has he always? Has he not? And that's like kind of something that's touched on a little bit in the DLCs from the first game when he's fragmented.
Mm-hmm. And it touches on it a little bit too, just in the idea where like he's occasionally getting glimpses or memories, or he's like, have I been here before? You know, where he's getting like deja vu and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think in Alan Wake 2 there is continuity. You know what I mean?
I think he's ascended to that in a way. Mm-hmm. It seems like there's like chances for him to have like a second self that's stuck in a dark place loop and can't get out while another one does continue. It seems like that could happen.
Right.
From the way in the first, I think it's in in the DLC for the first game when it's like you see the other Alan and you're like, oh my God. Like, you know, and he's the one that was stuck in the nightmare. And it's like, it seems like that if he's unstable, he could fall prey to that.
He could separate somehow. Mm-hmm. I don't know. That's Alan Wake 2.
Yeah, no, I just thought it was interesting because people were like, hey, you might, you know, also these like themes. This, It's like,
I mean, they're big themes. It's cool. That's cool stuff to think about. You know what I mean? It's literally things that
I think it's terrifying.
It is. I mean, yeah, it's a little scary. The whole game's terrifying. You know what I mean?
That's true.
And to discuss what it means to be human is, you know what I mean? I don't know. Nobody's been able to. Ultimately, it's one of those things where like you can't say that there's a right answer to that question.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's no correct answer to that.
No,
it's
you
always
can
going to be open to interpretation.
You can try to enforce an answer.
Yeah, well, yeah, you can do.
Did you have any favorite parts of this game in particular?
Favorite parts in particular? I didn't love the underwater scenes all the time. I liked them, but they weren't my favorite part.
The last underwater scene when you're in the abyss is one of my favorite parts.
That was the worst part of the whole fucking game. It was so scary and so stressful.
But I just thought it was like the most.
Oh, it's great. It's super intense. It's great.
It's a great crescendo.
I'm trying to think of what my favorite part of the game was. I really just loved exploring in like the wreckage and stuff, like in the actual like the different sites, whether you're in Tau or Omicron and stuff like that. I loved just walking around, and I loved like reading the different shit and getting the echoes. I tried to find all the echoes that I could. And I always hated when I'd interrupt them or I'd walk too far away. I'd go back and I'd start them over again. I probably just loved. I loved the story.
Yeah.
I don't know if I had a favorite section of it.
Here's another question. When you are in the Ark, you can see a building on the horizon, and you see a glimpse of it first. Before you go through a clearing.
And then you see like the whole city.
Wasn't there a photo of of that tall building in one of the lockers?
There might have been. I don't know.
I thought there was.
I think she might have based it on, Catherine talks more than once. She might have based it on, where does she say she's from? Is it Saigon? Or no, where does she say she wakes up?
Oh, God. You're right. I can't remember where.
I think it's Saigon.
It's like, oh, my hometown. Or my home city.
Yeah, so maybe that's what it's based on.
It could be. Mm-hmm. It just made me wonder. I go, wait a minute. Because that looks like an impossible sort of structure in a way.
Yeah.
And if there was a photo of it, it would suggest, again, that maybe, you know, things are fucked up because... like you're experiencing the memory of someone who was in the in the Ark already. If you've
already seen that,
or if anyone did, if maybe you didn't, maybe that photo though, maybe you know what I'm trying to say. It doesn't make sense.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Only because anybody, they'd have to come like back off the arc. You know what I mean? Because once you go onto the arc, you're not going to remember any. You only have your memories you had, and then any more memories you create after the scan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't have any of the memories of the thing that gets scanned onto the arc. You know, because like Simon 2 doesn't have Simon 3's memories.
Right.
You know. Interesting stuff.
Yeah. I could kind of just sit and ponder it for a while, and I probably will, inevitably.
Yeah, I mean, on my 2 playthroughs, I don't know. Because I had so many people in the chat, too, when I was streaming it, being like, when I finished it last night, being like, she didn't save anything. What was the point of it? That's not life. You know what I mean? Like, she's not saving humanity at all. They're just going to eventually, that'll die and it'll be over. I'm like, well, yeah, but...
Well, there's no ultimate solution. To me, it's the same stuff as like, oh, we need to do like preservation. It's like, I believe in video game preservation and stuff and environmental conservation and yes, but also I don't trick myself into thinking that those are forever answers. It's just like, hey, we should do what we can to like be good stewards of the things around us in the time that we're on this planet.
Yeah.
And beyond that, well, you're trying to solve a problem for people that don't even exist yet. So
yeah,
maybe just like worry about
what's going on right now,
you know, and
focus on the problems.
Those people will face their own problems in their own ways. Not that you can't do some sort of, you know, planning for the future, but like as this game shows, well, you know, the best laid plans, you know, you don't know how that's going to turn out.
A comet could just hit and end the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then it's all gone.
And
none
like,
of it mattered.
You know, the Ark was, you know, this great humanitarian gesture that just wound up tearing people apart and making them go crazy.
Making them kill each other, too.
And it's like, you know, you can try to help the future people, but you can only do so much, and you don't know. You don't know.
You have no idea, no. You can't.
Doesn't mean you should be apathetic.
No, but it's just like, I don't know, focus on what's in front of you.
Yeah.
To a degree. You know? Focus on that first, at least. Focus on what's in front of you first, and then maybe afterwards you can think about the other stuff. Yeah.
Except if you're really, you know, with it, it'll always just be what's in front of you. There'll never be anything else, really. You know? Yet if you're in the present moment.
But you tell us in the comments, what does it mean to be alive?
Yeah. There's no good cap to put on this. Well, thank you to everyone on Patreon.
Yeah, thank you for that, yeah.
Wow, look at all these lovely names.
Look at them. Look at you.
You're blocked now, actually. Yeah, sorry.
I'm not on there anymore. Andrew removed his name from there.
Why do you have to bring that up? You know, I'm very embarrassed about that. I go, no, he should continue giving the channel $1 a month for the rest of his life.
Until he dies. Until he enters the Ark.
Maybe it was $2 or $3. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
I'm not trying to out him as a cheapskate.
I try to give the minimum to any Patreon.
I gave $1.98 per month. Man, yeah, I'd love to say something poignant, but it's really just like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
Think on it.
And I will say I don't think it's the kind of game where there's any definitive answers for a lot of the stuff outside of what's established in the lore, and even that does seem subject to so much of it's like an oral history of things that it's like
it's all someone else's. It's all secondhand.
Yeah,
for the most part,
pretty much.
Aside from like the echoes that you find, the rest is secondhand.
Yeah.
So,
and even that's filtered through their perception in a way.
Yeah, because even then you're really only seeing the collapse of it.
Yeah,
you're only hearing about the buildup from their perspective. Yeah.
Wow. All right.
Thank you.
That's it. That's Soma.
It. That's Soma.
All right.
So let's play the Stroke song at the end. Get demonetized.
I will admit one more thing.
What's that?
All week I've been trying to write a joke like Soma nuts up. You know, like
you can only handle so much of this. Dick.
Humongous what?
Humongous what?
That shot looks pretty fucking crispy to me. It looks nice.
The lighting's nice too.